In today's video, we have the murder of a police sergeant who was shot and killed by a handcuffed suspect. His death made him the first ever officer to be killed inside a British police station. We do a deep dive into the case, the suspect, investigation and trial. We go to London Road in Norbury, South London at 1:30 a.m. on the 25th September 2020. Police officers PC Davey and PC Still had just stopped a man, 23-year-old Lou DeZoiza. He was stopped because he was wearing a hat and an overcoat. The weather was extremely warm. There was concerns over burglaries in the area. He was carrying a large bag. He was asked some questions and immediately admitted possessing Class B, which made PC Davey feel the man had something that he shouldn't. The man was told numerous times by the officers to stop reaching into his coat. The man was searched and patted down, and in the man's pocket was found 3 grams of Class B. In another pocket, a black pouch which had 7 bullets to a handgun. The man responded saying they are fake. He had his legs and arms and waistband to his trousers searched, but somehow the officers missed a gun in a holster under his arm. The officers who were in a patrol car called for a police van. Louis DeZoiza was taken to Croydon Custody Centre. During the journey, DeZoiza moved the gun from the holster to his hands, which was still cuffed behind his back. There was no metal detector at the entrance to the custody area. Once DeZoiza was in the custody suite, Sergeant Matt Ratner took control. When Sergeant Ratner heard about the discovery of the bullet, he said, "So you're probably going to need a further search." He handed a metal detector wand to PC Davey and instructed, "Just wand him down, but don't take the cuffs off." DeZoiza became uncompliant and would not stand up, muttering to PC Davey and PC Still, "Please leave, please leave." As PC Davey pulled him to his feet, DeZoiza brought his still cuffed hands from behind his back and shot Sergeant Ratner in the heart. A second shot hit the sergeant's leg, and a third went into the cell wall. There followed a struggle for about 15 seconds as PC Davey and PC Still leapt onto DeZoiza. A fourth shot was fired by DeZoiza that went straight into his own neck. Sergeant Ratner and DeZoiza were both rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Sergeant Matt Ratner sadly died from the gunshot wounds, one in his chest and one in his thigh. He was 54 years old. Sergeant Matt Ratner was formerly from New Zealand. His father was a Maori, and his mother had emigrated from Scotland. Matt Ratner had worked for the police in London for over 30 years. A keen sportsman, he was due to retire in the next couple of years. His family were not wealthy, but when he was a teen at college, he moved to America after winning a tennis scholarship, but decided he wanted to be a police officer. In 1991, aged in his early 20s, Matt Ratner moved to London and joined the Metropolitan Police. He married and had a son. Back in New Zealand, his brother turned to a life of crime, but later turned his life around. It had been the first time a police officer had ever been shot in a police station in the UK. DeZoiza's flat and parents' house were turned over by the police the morning after the shooting. His parents were sat handcuffed on the sofa as police raided their £600,000 home. It turns out he had an extremely volatile relationship with his father. Louis DeZoiza had been stopped previously in the past few months with no issue. At DeZoiza's flat they found further weapons. He was a coder for HM Revenue and Customs. Everything had seemed fine with him. He had a girlfriend, but the relationship ended after he became more detached. DeZoiza had hypermobility, which gave him unusual flexibility in his joints. At some point during the journey to the custody centre, he had managed to move the gun from the holster to his hands and keep it concealed behind his back. DeZoiza had bought the revolver at an online antiques auction in June 2020. The American Colt M1892 Navy and Army revolver was bought deactivated and was made between 1892 and 1908. The gun is legal because of the obsolete 41 caliber bullets it takes. It turns out he can make his own ammunition. In October 2020, de Zoysa's injuries were severe from the shot to his neck. He later suffered a stroke, which left him paralysed down one side of his body, with significant brain damage. De Zoysa's condition stabilised in hospital, and his injuries were no longer life-threatening. But doctors at the time reported and believed it is unlikely he'll ever recover. Police at the time said the suspect is unfit to be interviewed over the murder of Sergeant Ratner, and he is not to be arrested. The Crown Prosecution Service lawyers had advised police that de Zoysa cannot be charged in his absence with murder, as he is not mentally or physically fit enough to plead or receive and give legal instructions. A legal source in a news interview said he cannot even be arrested, never mind be charged and prosecuted. After a public outcry of Sergeant Ratner's killer not facing justice and improvements in de Zoysa's health, he still needed hospital treatment, but on the 29th of June 2021, he was deemed well enough to be formally charged with murder. A pre-trial hearing was set for June 2023, almost 3 years after the shooting. On June 6, 2023, the pre-trial hearing of Louis de Zoysa commenced. De Zoysa pleaded not guilty to the charge in April during a hearing at Northampton Crown Court. De Zoysa, who cannot speak because of brain damage, held up a whiteboard with not guilty written on it during the hearing to enter his plea from a video link from a secured hospital. In Northampton Crown Court, the judge was Mr. Justice Johnson. De Zoysa's lawyer argued that de Zoysa, who has Asperger's syndrome, was experiencing an autistic meltdown at the time of the shooting and was therefore not guilty of murder. De Zoysa was in court wheelchair bound and brain damaged as a result of the bullet hitting his neck. The jury heard that de Zoysa was a former tax office data analyst, but was not told a shortened infantry rifle, numerous types of ammunition, a pipe gun and a dummy launcher were found at his rented property. He had worked on weapons in his garage for 6 months before the shooting. He was unsure why he'd done this. He stated he did not want to hurt anyone. He also told psychologists that he started carrying a pistol after he was robbed in 2021, following a deal gone wrong. Police believe that de Zoysa may have been on his way to attack his father when he was stopped by police just moments from his family home. Jurors deliberated over 2 days before unanimously convicting de Zoysa. Judge Justice Johnson said Sergeant Ratner had devoted his life to public service. He put himself in danger to protect the public and to protect the safeguard of those in custody. His family are rightly and immensely proud of the man you killed. They recognise that you bear the sole responsibility for his murder. They say in a victim impact statement that for the officers on duty that night, they have nothing but support, admiration and respect. You said you had an autistic meltdown. You said you had diminished responsibility. You acted in cold blood. You intended to kill Sergeant Ratner. You deliberately aimed the gun at his chest at near point-blank range. Even as he fell to the ground, you re-aimed and fired a second shot at him. Autism does not cause people to be violent. Autistic people are no more likely to commit violent offences than anyone else. The judge said that de Zoysa had begun planning to murder a police officer following his arrest, started by lying to police and misdirecting them by admitting to carrying Class B. You knew the gun worked. You knew each cartridge was likely to kill if fired directly at the person's chest. You had no lawful or good reason for possession of a gun. You deliberately concealed the gun from police. You told officers you had Class B to conceal their attention from the gun. When police found the cartridges, you lied and said they were not real. You made strenuous and successful effort to retrieve the gun whilst it was concealed behind your back. You had time and space to consider what to do. He said, Louis de Zoysa, I sentence you to imprisonment for life. I impose a whole life order. That means you'll remain in custody for the rest of your life. De Zoysa, then 25 years old, showed no emotion as he was convicted of murder. Dressed in black, in his wheelchair, he nodded at the judge. His distraught mother cried out, God bless you, I love you, as her son was wheeled out of the courtroom. De Zoysa, who will serve his sentence at Belmarsh Prison, will become the 65th person in jail in England and Wales under a whole life tariff. The Health and Safety Executive, referred to as HSE, independently investigated the circumstances surrounding the fatal shooting of Police Sergeant Matt Ratner. The Metropolitan Police did not receive an investigative report from the HSE, but received a letter setting out their findings and actions required of the police. The HSE required the police to take action in 4 areas: the proactive supervision and monitoring of spontaneous searches, risk assessments for spontaneous searches on the street, a review of search training, and a review of risk identification and management systems. The HSE have confirmed they are satisfied with the police response and action taken, which meets their requirements. One of these being metal wand detectors for use in police stations and on the street, which have widely been introduced with new search techniques. In November, there was a police inquiry into the shooting. PC Davey said the weapon was there. I should have found it. If not the weapon, the holster. Dominic Adamson, KC, representing Sergeant Ratner's partner, identified 4 occasions where PC Davey failed to do the job he was supposed to do. The lawyer asked, if you had done your job properly, Sergeant Ratner would still be alive, wouldn't he? The officer answered, I don't know. The opportunities missed were a result of my decision to consider the safety of Mrs. Azoiza, myself and PC Still. PC Davey agreed with Dominic Anderson KC that an adequate search would identify the gun. He said, I believed at the time the search was adequate, but with hindsight, no. The officer was then asked by Mr. Adamson why he did not question if Azoiza had a gun. He said, I thought if he came forward about the Class B, he would have come forward about being in possession of a firearm. He denied the suggestion. It would have been an obvious question to ask. In the custody van, Azoiza was seen in footage wriggling and jerking, which according to expert evidence was him repositioning the firearm to his hands. However, PC Davey said he was interrupted while filling out paperwork and did not spot this. Police Conduct released a statement and said the 2 officers involved will not face any misconduct action, and went so far as to describe their efforts to subdue the gunman as heroic. No police officer will face disciplinary action over the botched search of Louis Azoiza. In March 2024, Sergeant Ratner's widow launched a civil claim and placed the blame squarely at the foot of the police. She told British news media she was not told about the blunder at the time. The civil claim is still ongoing against the Met Police. A really shocking case, and a mistake that cost Sergeant Matt Ratner his life. It's easy to sit and judge from afar, but I really feel for all the officers in this case. Sergeant Ratner, brought up on British TV New Zealand, he watched with his mum, both their favourites being Bodie and Doyle in The Professionals. An absolutely tragic loss, not only for his family in the force, but this country he came to and made his home. Louis Azoiza was on a downward spiral. If police had found the gun and the other weapons, he would have at the most done 5 years and been out. Unfortunately, we've seen cases before with police officers failing to check suspects, like David Bieber, who shot 3 police officers and murdered one of them in cold blood. He was put into the back of a police car, with officers not knowing he was carrying a gun. Louis Azoiza's own life has been affected by his actions. He can't walk and can barely talk, with brain damage at his own hand. He'll never be free, and that is the only good thing to come out of this story.